This is LRBT3, Flaw, question number 36. And it's asking, how is the reviewer's reasoning vulnerable to criticism? And so a reviewer is saying that, they're evaluating this claim of historians. So historians are claiming um, that they are not as affected by moral or aesthetic preconceptions, and they're comparing it to, natural scientists. The reviewer is like, yeah, no, we can't accept these proclamations of objectivity. That would be our conclusion there. And so we want to take note of it. And then we're going to ask ourselves, like, well, why is it that we cannot accept these claims that they are being very objective? And they say you can't accept it because it's easy to find false historical explanations embodying ideological and other prejudices of their authors. So basically, we're going to say the historians are not being objective because we're going to find false explanations that clue us into the historians like biases. And so now we're going to ask ourselves with this flaw question, in the answer choices, is does this answer choice actually happen? Is this something that the reviewer is actually committing? And does that hurt our claim that we can't accept these proclamations of objectivity? We can call it into question, and we can fulfill those two criteria. We're going to be good to go. So A, takes for granted that the model of objectivity offered by the natural sciences should apply in other fields. I don't think our reviewer cares about that. They're just saying we can't accept their ideas of objectivity because we're just going to find examples of how they're biased. We don't really care about the natural sciences and their level of objectivity. B, offers evidence that undermines rather than supports the conclusion it reaches. So it actually doesn't undermine. So this is not something that is actually happening in the passage. C, it fails to recognize that many historians employ methodologies that are intended to uncover and compensate for prejudices. So this could be happening. Maybe they are, working really hard to uncover and compensate for their own prejudices. But this could still support the idea of we can't accept the proclamations of objectivity because it means that the historians are, still biased. um, and we're still, it doesn't really call this into question. It would actually kind of help our argument in some ways or be a net neutral. D, it takes for granted that some historical work that embodies prejudices is written by historians who purport to be objective. So when we take for granted, we're just kind of assuming. So it's assuming that some historical work that embodies prejudices, so these works are written by historians who purport to be objective. They're saying, we are absolutely saying that works that happen, that have biased, false historical explanations, that they happen. If we were to take D and negate it, let's say, and we were to assume that, actually there are no books that are heavily biased, written by historians who have biases. If there were no books or historical explanations, as the reviewer said, then their argument would actually be really invalid. So this actually does happen in the argument, and it also hurts the conclusion of the argument. It calls it into question. And let's look at E. E fails to recognize that not all historical explanations embodying ideologies are false. So here they're basically saying we have historical explanations, and some of them might be biased, but they're not all false. So if we were to plug that in there, maybe it is true. Maybe it's true that not all explanations with ideologies are false. But this would support what the reviewer says. We would be able to call the historian's claims of objectivity false, and not accept it. So this would actually help what the reviewer has to say. So we would go with D as our best answer because our criteria are met. So it's something that actually does happen in the passage. It's something that calls the conclusion into question. And it's something that, if we were to take the opposite and say that it was like if we were to negate this answer choice, this would poke some holes in this argument.